It's Friday, 11 a.m., at least on the West Coast. It's some other time on the East Coast, where Alden is. I'm Ken on the best coast. That's Alden on the second best coast. How are you?
Yeah, it is. I used to sort of have a little bit of East Coast pride. That is long dead.
Long gone?
Long gone. I no longer feel the desire to defend this place. I mean, we're both coastal elites at the end of the day.
Yes.
What it really is our viewers and listeners and friends in the quote-unquote flyovers in the middle of the country that no one cares about. They should have a problem with both of us.
And generally, I think they do. I think they do.
Eli's here. Eli is an LA boy, West Coast, West Coast baby. Yeah.
I just, look, here's the reason why. I get to watch baseball games at 7 p.m. You suckers have to watch them at 10 p.m. That's why. And you're not even a sports guy. I understand.
But to your point, I've always had, we're both wrestling guys. I've always had Monday Night Raw on my time. That's always been for us. And I West Coast feed, I think they simulcast certain things, and East does get preferential treatment though in media for sure. It wasn't until streaming that we started to get screwed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't think about that. The midnight drops on the West Coast for the Star Wars shows, to my benefit.
Yeah. You guys benefit with streaming.
Screw off to you and Alex and Molly. You got to watch them at 3 a.m.
It's the worst. I mean, I did the Rings of Power finale. Shout out Casually Talk. Check out our other channel where we discussed the finale last night. Great 2-hour discussion on that finale. I watched that finale at 3 o'clock. I was crying at 3:09 a.m. Eastern.
It was so good. I really love Rings of Power, the series, but season 2 was just a wonderful experience. I love it. I'll be on Casually soon. You and I will talk, do a season recap maybe next week.
Yes. Yeah.
You're doing great work. And for those of you who are watching or listening later and you want to get some in-depth conversations around Rings of Power or House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones in general, don't forget to check out Casually Talk. We are close to being remonetized fully. We were. And then I let it slip. I let that channel slip away. And then I brought you in and you've kicked life back into it and it's almost monetized. So go help us out by watching some stuff over there. Indeed. We got Kingsport Cal here, Matty Gunner checking for the UK, E like you said. Michael McCarsell, Detective McCarsell, as I call him. Woo, time for any time. Good to be here with you, buddy. A lot to get to in our casual, yet we can't stop being broadcasters conversations.
No. We try very we have a lot of friends that podcast. And you in particular, you have a lot of friends in comedy. Someone I think of just off the top of my head is Mark Ellis, but Jen Sturgis has out a podcast now for around a year.
Her and Eddie Pence, great show.
Eddie Pence, where they go in and it's topics, and then after they've discussed and after they've riffed, then they are okay, now what do we pull from this? Whereas we, even though we try to, cannot help but be all right, so we'll hit this in the first segment, and we'll hit this in the second segment. Even though we stopped doing prep sheets and we try not to, we're still doing it.
Here's the thing. So I am 30 minutes away from finishing the Vince McMahon doc on Netflix. Have thoughts and things. Love to talk to you about it. We talk about it here today. But the beginning of the doc, when Vince McMahon says, "I don't know who I am," I know that was maybe played for I was like, I get that. I do not know who I am unless I'm in front of this microphone. And what I'm struggling with in this current generation of entertainment, not calling it content, but entertainment, is people are so good at just turning on the microphone and being like, yeah, so anyways, I bought a donut. And I can't do that because I turn on my phone. I'm like, donuts, eh? And it comes off maybe as insincere, but it's just, that's how I know myself. So me and Vince McMahon, that's the only thing that we share.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. On the very short list of similar qualities, white, male, identity crisis. It's
I wish I had his. No one's talking about his big hands. He's got some of the biggest ham hocks I've seen since I shook hands with Roddy Piper.
He's a large man. You see Vince, obviously there's a lot of footage of him throughout the doc, but just growing up watching wrestling with his power walk and everything, it's a funny walk, but he has massive arms. They're long. Yeah. He's a big dude. I feel you on that. And as we talked about it off air before, I do think there's an insincerity that goes the other way of trying too hard to be selfie videos. Hey guys, guess what? So today, and it's we've already done 6 cuts in that. And it's that's a modern that I can't do, but I also think there is a modern that I would like to do. that is looser and more
Yeah.
riffing and everything. And I don't know.
You know what I've learned, and we'll get to actual content today. I've learned if I'm a guest on other shows, Wangers, for instance, I'm performing, but it's more natural. So maybe I just need to be guests on other shows. That's what it has to be. You and I
and
gotta stop
guesting
producing this show
is a different skill too. You know, and that I think that's a skill that is easier sometimes to snap into than hosting, because hosting digitally is like hosting company. It still has the same level of pressure.
There is a skill to guesting. Charles Grodin, the best of all time. I will get absolutely grumpy, as I do often, when people, big YouTubers, that used to come on Jedi Council, some who are just now alt-right grifters, but these come on Jedi Council and they'd be like, how do you all do this every week? And because you're alone in your room forever. You don't know how to do this. And I get a little grumpy, but we don't want to be grumpy today. A lot to get to. Maddie Gunner says, designer steroids will do that for you. Yeah, that's probably true. Talking about Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Not talking about our podcast ability. That steroids has done nothing for me and Ken, unfortunately.
There was a weird point in time I was looking in. I was like, when I said looking at, I was like, I think I could do HGH. I was getting heavier into weightlifting, and this was towards the tail end of my wrestling career. And I was like, as everyone knows, I was a manager and a booker. I wasn't actually a worker in the ring. But I was like, yeah, I could do that. I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah. And did you have a bunch of guys around you like, we got you, Ken? Like,
yeah, wrestlers and cops. They all have it. You know how many steroid guys are there in LAPD?
That's so funny. You could probably do like some sort of really like interesting essay on like paralleling the cultures, like the hierarchies, the locker rooms, like
locker room culture. There should be a doc on locker room culture, because it became during 2016 locker room talk became a talking point in the nation, as it should. And I'm not as worried about it as other people. We should probably not be that, but the Venn diagram of some of these folks. Yeah, there was I don't want to get into it. Yeah, there was a big dude, LAPD big dude, Devonshire Division. He used to walk in and be like, Wheaties? Did you eat your Wheaties?
Did you eat your Wheaties? Jesus. Thank God you avoided those Barry Bonds arms. Yeah, Ken would look great at any size though. Ken could be.
I'm a thicker dude. I'm a bull. I'm a cart puller, so I do bulk up fast. I love eating. I've been improving my eating this week, Alden, and I got 2 weddings this month I got to attend, and I'm gonna hit that dance floor a little thinner.
Yeah. And first of all, I love that you said you're gonna hit the dance floor. I whenever someone says like, I gotta go to, I don't really like to dance, I'm like, come on, that's like the best part of going. That's the best part of going.
On my show, The Blathering, live most Thursdays at 5 p.m. Next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific. I ran a poll yesterday. What's your favorite part of the wedding? Dancing, snacks, open bar, or finding out you have new relatives or relatives you didn't know. And open bar won, which was, come on. With my audience, but dancing close second. But
that goes hand in hand.
They wanted to combine it,
Exactly, yeah. Like it's being able to drink on someone else's dime, see people, at least a couple people you enjoy, or even if it's no one, at least one of the people getting married, and to dance. So I'm glad you have that approach, and congrats on eating better, and don't let Mark Ellis bring you to Sonic or any of those places.
We did good on the road. We had to drive up last week to the San Francisco area for the memorial of Josh McCook's brother Ben. Emotional time, but a great time. But we drove. It's a 7-hour drive, and we did pretty good. We didn't overindulge. We did good.
Nice.
We did good.
So are you vegan, Ken, again?
No. And before I forget, Sean, thanks for this comment. Loving that you love Anytime.
Hey.
No, I need to be again. My biggest problem isn't. I mean, I want to cut down red meat always, but like my problem isn't the vegan versus not vegan. It's sugar. And I can't give up. I have to work on giving up sugar or lowering my sugar intake. Anyways, that's boring. That's boring shit. That's boring shit, Alden.
We're just testing the waters. We're putting our toe in the water for our health podcast pivot.
Indeed.
We'll find any angle. We're not except UFOs and things like that. We're not going to do that.
I mean, we can talk about them. We can talk about them. We can talk about how lizard people are connected to It's not a fun conspiracy theory. It's not a fun, well, that's weird. It leads to January 6th. It leads to that stuff. So we can talk about
No,
that one day.
100%. Yeah, like Doctor Who has a race of alien people
Yeah,
in the
right.
mythology that are lizard folk that live under the Earth's crust.
Mhm.
And watching
Yeah.
Doctor Who like in high school, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Ha, ha, ha. And then I was like, "Oh, people really believe that that exists." And then you
Yep.
realize, like, "Oh, you guys are connecting this to like blood libel and like
Yep.
really insane shit."
Yep. Yep. And it
it's
leads
wild.
to the Christmas. There's a great series executive produced by the Duplass brothers that Grace had me watch. I want to shout it out. It's a true crime paranormal series. First episode's about lizard people, and the Nashville Christmas Day bombing of 2020. Tony Warren blew himself up in an RV. Believed everyone was in control were lizards. So it's not. It's yeah. Anyways, debates, huh?
Yeah, debates. This did not come up. There were no lizard people
They should ask.
discourse points.
Okay.
They should ask. And then we could watch Vance be like, I know a lizard person. She's watching right now. That was weird. That whole like there's a woman and she's watching right now and like
you know what? Yeah, it's like the State of the Union speech. I never really, or the DNC, RNC. They're pep rallies that I don't fully trust, and I don't want that to be interpreted as both sides. I just like I don't that they're just amplified. But at least when Tim Walz was like, "Hey, I'm referring to a woman who died, who we all know," and Vance had my girlfriend in Canada.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So like let's unpack this. David McKay also points out Doctor Who also taught us the royal family are werewolves. That I believe more for sure.
Oh, and this before we transition to the full debate talk, Star Wars: The Galaxy, Eli said, "I love when sitting representatives of Congress push the Jews control the world theory and the Jewish New Year." And Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene today referenced, without saying it by name, but referenced the control the weather HARP theory. I've done a lot of research on it in the last month. That's absolutely batshit insane that she would mention that with a straight face as a sitting member of Congress.
It is insane. It's awful, and with her refusing, and because these are cowardly people. So with her throwing it out there without actually saying Jewish people, it reads like the bigotry that Stan Lee and Chris Claremont wrote into X-Men comics. Yes. It reads exactly like that. It is straight up Senator Kelly or like the evil Stryker, the pastor and everything. Like they control the weather. Don't let them tell you that they don't. And it's like, Jesus Christ. Like anyone that has ever said that like pop culture is not about stuff. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. And to the confusing thing is you can affect weather, like cloud seeding. Look at Dubai. Dubai, you can create rain. They build mountains. It has dangerous effects for other parts of the desert that get different things to it. But it's possible. So you can take that kernel of truth and turn it into the HARP project, this array system up in Alaska that people believe created or turned Katrina left. It's batshit how far, and she's elected, so there you go.
Yep, and there are people that will gladly support her and everything, which is part of what we're going to get to with this VP debate is the whole idea of like, oh, this is acceptable, and we're just never gonna, we're gonna put this Pandora's back in the box, and we get it. But Waltz, Vance, I think overall less to discuss than the POTUS debates, both the Joe and the Kamala one. We were saying off air, these things don't really generally affect things. That's what was so unique about the Joe Biden debate is that it actually caused enough of a national moment for people to reevaluate and to lead us where we are now. VP debates are already have a lower ceiling of like effect. It's, everyone emphasized do no harm, do no harm. That's the thing. You just be the salesman for your person and then move on with your life. Exactly. But what was uniquely, it was sinister on one side and frustrating on the other. Uniquely sinister about Vance, which is that they decided to like lower the fascism down to like 40-50% and present him like a moderate that he is not. And then the very next day, he's back on the campaign trail continuing the same stuff. The very next day. So they presented a moderate Vance to con people. And then to combat that, you had the Dems sort of doing the stuff that like I'm used to them doing, but I thought we were gonna not do in this cycle.
Mm.
It's like, you know, we kicked Joe out, and sorry, Joe steps down willingly with no influence from anyone else.
Like you can say kicked him out. You can say kicked him out. There you go.
George Clooney's like, oh, I kicked him out. Alden, I kicked him out. I, Batman, kicked him out. Joe's gone, and then Kamala steps in. Great momentum. Great, wonderful. Walls, huge. Yeah. Then DNC. Oh my God, we're rocking and rolling. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Since the DNC, we have definitely been like, oh, we only had 2 cool moves in us, and it's gotten a little milquetoast. And this Walls strategy of like overly kind multiple times throughout the night, like, you know, I don't even disagree with Senator Vance, and not like this like glad handing bullshit, like that is so far from these guys are weird and dangerous and creepy that Walls himself had brought to the conversation. And like there was no signs of like aggressive like accusations of like they're weird. There was no Coach Walls. There was no really like a lot of the elements were stripped down, and like, yeah, talking points of nerves. Sure, he was absolutely that first half. Walls was like shaky. It was his first time. You know, DNC was the first speech. This is the first debate. He's new. That's fine. I don't even care about the nerves. I care that like you had one of these, and you used it, and you were like, that stuff that's working, let's not do it. I don't get that. I don't know whose call that is, but I don't get it.
A team. I look, I don't think you're wrong, because I was talking to you off air. I saw some good punditry on CNN about this, and I think there's a desire to have a knockout punch. Now, I think there was a little bit of momentary sex, but to our point that you and I were taking at the top of the segment, but also off air, needles don't necessarily get moved. The only thing I think the attempt was to speak to, I think of my father, who would never dare vote for Obama because he was, quote, talking down to me all the time. And Dad's a working man and this, that, and you can try to read into that, and there's some, you know, deep-seated things. It just, on the surface level, it was like, he's talking down to me. And I think there's a large swath of people, I'm going to put age or demographic generation, who do think both these idiots just need to get along and help me. And I think that the play, obviously, and you know, I'm not saying anything to you that you can't figure out or didn't know on your own, but the play was to meet that soft middle. And I think when Vance was giving you this normal talk, I think it was okay to say, all right, cool, we agreed on that. Hey, my son was experiencing, oh, sorry. Oh, thanks for saying sorry. Like, I think that has a better chance of moving the needle for those mythical undecideds. But I also, you were left at the end of it. I watched all 90 minutes of it. You were left with the, oh, but you didn't call him weird.
Yeah, it was.
And he
just
walked
like,
away unscathed a little bit, you know.
And by the end of the 90 minutes, like you said with the J6, like we just started to get there. We started to hold him to task. But it's like there were topics that were brought up throughout as they moved us through on CBS with their fact-checking controversy, which we'll get to. You know, we got into different things. Like when we get into women's rights, how are you not, if you're Walls or if you're Walls' team or Kamala's team, how are you not going to bring up everything that he said about childless people? How are you not going to bring up the stuff he's brought into this about more taxes? How are you not going to, like, there's so many layups that are like, you don't even have to be decorum. You could just quote him, which Walls did do a couple times about Trump. He's like, you know, the senator has said these things about him. Like, yeah, that's valid to bring up too, but it's like,
I think you could have done that too. But look, by the way, I've not been in a vice presidential debate. I was on the debate team for 1 year. I didn't like it. And Vance is good at that, right? This is what, and that's the scary thing about it. This is a hillbilly elegy guy. This is him doing pretty good at talking, and he's young. We can make all the jokes about him we want, and we should. But yeah, he's got a skill set here. Coach Walls is a different skill set, but I would have, like, politely ask him, hey, can I ask you a question here? It says here you don't like childish cat ladies. What is that about? Like, you could have done it in a nice way.
There are those things too, and especially like, you know, we get to the Haitian immigrant stuff, and it's like the absolute like unrepentant racist libel that he's thrown at that entire community, which he has then admitted were stories he creates, and these are like on-air admissions. And so it's like, so you're a racist liar, and then you're an unrepentant racist liar who thinks you're clever for being a racist liar. And that just not going to get brought up. It comes up because of the clash with the moderators of their legal status and things like that. And David McKay brings up, the last election thing is the thing they're going to hang on to, as they should. They turned that into an ad very quick for the Kamala campaign. They had that ready to go, which was good. But
the cynical part of me, the cynical side here, and this is I offer it up to you, is just like, here's my thought is, we talk about the needle doesn't move. Like, I just drove up not the coast, I drove up the 5 freeway, which is I think people who aren't in California, we have the coastal elite stuff. Then we have the 5 freeway that takes you up through all the farmland and hardworking people. Every third acre was a Trump fan sign. 6-hour drive. I'm not joking. Ellis will tell you. Every third acre was a Trump fan sign. And it's sad that they don't care about Haitians in Springfield. They don't care about January 6th. In fact, they probably wish they could have gone. And it's like, I don't know. That's my cynical. I just don't know. So if Tim Walz being polite helps that, I don't know I don't know, and I don't think it does, maybe, to your points. I don't know. I just, that's the frustration I had at the end of it, is like, how do these relatively normal people who are making our food, because every other sign, when it wasn't Trump, Vance was yelling at Newsom about the water deal. Water is complicated. Go watch Climate Town. Raleigh put out a video last month about the water situation in California. It is, I can't even begin to try to explain it. I'm not an expert on it. But they boil it down to Newsom's quit squandering our water. And if I was to go to that person, but trans rights, they're for they, them, they're for me. Like, that marketing that's going out right now. Have you seen that commercial? They played it during football.
Yeah.
And it's it's like Harris and Walz are for they, them. Trump's for you. Like, and Ellis and I heard it. We actually laughed because we're like, oh God, unfortunately, that's genius for those folks. It's fortunately it's gonna hit right where it needs to. Yeah, it's perfect marketing. Yeah. So, anyways, all that to say, all that I'm asking probably, like, I walked. That's what I walked away with. Like, cynical. I just don't know what you could have done to convince those folks. I don't know. So I don't know if you aim for the middle.
Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating, and it's like the frustration comes from questions of aiming for the middle and these like mythical, like we said, mythical undecideds that, like, at this point in 2024, all the years since Trump came down that escalator, we're still chasing this undecided person. That person, I'll give you 2 categories for those people. They either A, don't fucking exist, and then B, the ones that maybe kind of do are not serious people. Like, you're not a serious person. You're not a serious person. You're probably not going to vote.
That's part of the frustration too, and again, so much small percentage.
And it's that we had them on the back foot. That's the frustration. We had them on the back foot. They were crumbling. They were crumbling. They were sputtering. They were making less sense. They were being held to account. Vance is being clowned on. This is the first huge like event for the campaign. I mean, obviously there have been rallies and interviews and everything, but like in terms of the things that you mark since the Taylor Swift thing, like, not saying she needs to be a focus of this, because we have in pop music spent too much fucking time worried about what pop stars are doing. And it's like, but why not just be like, hey, we have this massive endorsement, and that is because of the things that you said about women like her. It's because of like your family has different cultures and races in it, and yet what's good for the pot kettle black type shit, like, it just like there's no grit whatsoever, and it's frustrating because I thought we had it. They led me along.
Look, and I think they're back out trying to have it. I want to make clear. I'm not even this isn't a devil's advocate disagreeing with you. I heard that point made on CNN when I was watching after the debate, or no, it might have been MSNBC. I apologize to corporate news networks. And I was like, because everyone else was like focused on the January 6th thing and how that was a knockout, and then this one person was just like, let me tell you the other side of it. And I do think it's right, and I think what I don't want words in your mouth, but it's like you walked away from a fight wanting it to be a fight, and they shook hands too much, and you're just like,
and also just like, I feel like for my entire adult life, and even before my adult life, in my teenage years, the Democrats have been experts at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And they have been absolute experts at like acting like they don't know what they're doing and saying, but if you just give me $10 more, we'll get it right next time. And then this was the year where they finally took the gloves off in the summertime and said, you know what, we got to make some big moves. They made 2 huge moves in a row, and it's like I want to be clear. What I'm about to say is not my opinion. I would not go this far, but I understood why. I saw I forget their name, unfortunately, but a pundit from, I believe, CBS bring up on Twitter, like, it begs the question, or raises the question, why not just have chosen Shapiro then? Like, why did you choose? Why did you like all the conversations that we had about why Walz is better than the other people that you had, than Shapiro, than Kelly, etc. It's like, okay, well, now you you had the DNC, and then you very quickly asked Walz to be less Walz, and it's like, no, don't do that, especially not when, you know. We should also note, this is our first episode after SNL 50 premiered. You bring out Gaffigan, and like Gaffigan as Walz emphasizes everything that everybody likes about Walz.
Yeah,
the cultural character is already solidified.
He's there. Yeah, and I hope there's time to correct it. I mean, we're running out of time, but no, I agree with you there, and it's not unlike some of my worst moments as a stand-up comic are when I get up on stage and try to give the audience what I think they want, as opposed to what brought me there. And it's a pretty common thing in art or just life, right? Yeah. Sports, anything, the way you look at it. In fact, we'll talk later about studios looking to ask fans, what do you want? Just tell us. And I think that's part of the frustration that that's there with me too. I think I have a slightly, again, it's not even a slightly different take than you, just a slightly like, I don't know. I bet my dad comes out of that debate not disliking Walz as much. Not gonna vote for him.
Yeah,
but
which is the advantage that he does maintain. I want to be clear and fair to Walz as well.
Yeah,
what I think he lost in this, in terms of, as the kids say, aura. What I think that Walz might have lost here is what, you know, a couple different punchier things. What he did not lose is what you're speaking to with people like your father, or like you know, these a lot of women on TikTok after he was chosen as the VP candidate were saying, like, Walz represents the dads we lost to Fox News.
Yeah,
and that type of stuff. Like, yeah, he will speak to that, and like the 11% rebate at Menards, and like different things like that have become signature phrases, or, you know, him tweeting where we're at in the election in terms of football, like as if we were in a game, like things like that are still going.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you know,
we got the ball, but the score's tied.
Yeah, we've got the ball. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that still works, that still lands, and
he's been working. He's been the best choice. Yeah,
they should lean into that.
Couple questions here in chat I highlighted, want to get to. First of all, addressing Matthew Stokes. Did I see Raleigh's video in Clementine about the Al Gore election 2000? I did, and I knew most of it, not only in terms of living through it, but some of the stuff over the years that have come out. But it's a great video. I cannot recommend Climate Town enough for folks. Check it out. It is a great YouTube channel, also podcast. I don't listen to podcasts as much, but Raleigh does great work. It's also very funny. It's informative. And truthful and honest, like it's just special. I really love Climate Town. Highly recommend it. Unofficial sponsor of the channel. Dave McKay and Michael McCarcel were talking, and this David brought up this talking to Michael, but I don't think they wanted to debate on it. This is talking about the January 6th, and they wanted a clip of them not admitting to it, so they could use it for social media ads. And that's my only hope coming out of this. Again, this wasn't a loss. This wasn't like the first Biden debate where it was chaos. It's just like it was like. Okay, we ran a very conservative playbook. We handed off to the running back and got 3 yards instead of 3 touchdowns. I got football. That's football. But in this age, hopefully, that ad hitting right away, and hopefully you can get those clips, and maybe that's how you salvage it, or that was either the plan or thing like that. That's a hope for me.
Yeah, I could see that, and I do think that was wise, and it was good to hit it, and like it will haunt Vance a little bit. I think that framing it in the, like how they say, like, you should always ask an employer why the position is open, framing it with like, you're only up here because Mike Pence didn't do that was actually really good. That was good.
Yeah.
You know,
we need more of that. Yeah, we need more
of it. And it's like, but again, speaking to the like Ken's dads of the world, I also think that the other big thing is the moderating point of like, well, the rules were that you weren't going to fact check. That right there should be indicating even to the most boomery of boomers, oh, this young man is a fucking liar. Like, I would hope that computes. Now, granted, after the last 12 years, 8 years, I don't know if it will. But it's like, that's an admission of you, like, that translates directly, no exaggeration, to you told me I'd be allowed to lie.
No, look, because two things. Jen Maddle, hey Jen, did you see the college age man being asked by the VP role, mentioning taking civics class? Why aren't politicians tested for that? First of all, that was a great clip. I was watching that. They were interviewing people around, and it would be problematic to completely do the impersonation of the kid for reasons, but like, he had spirit. I wanted an hour at that kid. He was amazing. Because awesome. You take civics class and you would know the vice. He was amazing. And I would have loved, just throw him against Vance. Throw that 20-year-old kid Dean, who's going around debating folks, debating.
The blonde kid?
Yeah, Nick Fuentes and everything. Throw him up there against Trump and Vance. Run him.
100%. Like, or bring them in for like youth strategies. Stop making focus groups for fucking Star Wars. Make focus groups for these people.
I agree with that. And a quick question here. We can go anywhere you want after this, including staying in here. Dylan Barry at the Dylan Barry Network. Hey, Dylan. Do either of you have a favorite VP, like one who didn't become president? I ask because they don't feel relevant to my short 29 years of life. Feels like a backup quarterback. Not untrue. And the caveat of who didn't become president, because Biden was a pretty interesting ice cream eating, flag waving, stumbling, bumbling Jason Sudeikis vice president. I liked Biden as VP, and I didn't vote for him back then. Remember, I was playing for the other team back then. John Adams is one of my favorite presidents, and I liked him as a VP. And fascinating because they literally didn't do anything. Great scene in HBO's John Adams where they have a dinner and they're talking about things, and then George Washington's like, "Cool, John, could you get out of the room? We need to talk business," and he has to. So the vice president offices have changed. I don't know. That's a great answer. Dan Quayle for amusement reasons, but I wouldn't say I like him.
It's like,
but at least Quayle helped Pence make the right decision on January 6th.
Yeah, if the chants of hang Mike Pence weren't enough of a reason, maybe that's what it was. Maybe Mike, listen to the chants. Mike Pence of hang Mike Pence fame.
But Quayle was when Pence called him, and Quayle's like, you can't.
You need to.
you can't overturn that.
Yeah. We got Mondale. Yeah. Eli says Biden was probably better as VP. I mean, in terms of character and presentation, absolutely. I mean, I've said this before, like, the greatest thing that Barack Obama ever sold was Joseph Robinette Biden. Like, they created the Uncle Joe character so perfectly that what was obviously a strategic pick in 2008 becomes this like consummate best friend in pop culture. That is your more grizzled, slightly tougher shades. Barack is the talker. I'm the hitter. Like, they had the whole thing.
They were a tag team. Yeah, they were
100%. They had the whole vibe.
They had the guy, the work rate guy, and then they had the hot tag guy.
The work rate guy. Yes, exactly. It just makes me think of the trailer for Adam McKay's Cheney film Vice, where Christian Bale's Cheney is like, the vice presidency is historically a ceremonial job. And it's like, it doesn't fucking mean anything until Cheney gave it meaning. Sadly.
Bad meaning.
And it's like my childhood, like Cheney was the first vice president I was aware of because I was a little kid. And, so what we knew is that there was like this more scary guy off to the side of the silly one was kind of the dynamic. And like, I don't have a lot of vice presidential opinions. I mean, like, I want to say Gore. Yeah, like Kingsport Cal says Gore. Yeah, I would probably easily say Gore, mostly because of the fact that he actually cared, and like that was also big in my childhood. It was he used to be a vice president, and now he cares.
But
about
he and his wife didn't like swear words on rock records, so I don't know if I can support him.
Yeah, that's an L take, Al. Sorry, Al.
It was a big L.
And Al Gore gave us Al Gore's internet, where we were here. We broadcast
the Al Gore rhythm.
Yeah, the Al Gore rhythm. So but VPs. I mean, I want to say Tim Walz will be my favorite shortly, but evidently everything that's happened is not enough to shake us out of 50-50.
I know. Mr. Beat, another great channel. I like, not Mr. Beast, but Mr. Beat History channel. Check it out, please. He does great work, interesting work. He just put out a little video on Harris actually being one of the more active vice presidents in history. And it lays out the case. And again, that's a case I wish they could have laid out in 30 seconds in a debate, so folks in my circle former circle could get it. But again, I don't think they could get it. I was having a conversation with someone. We're talking about, this is a person on the opposite side of the aisle, but we're talking about corporations, talking about AI, taking how AI itself, like you and I are talking, AI itself maybe not bad. I actually like a lot of the things it does. But corporations get a hold, airlines, mergers, and they were like in agreement. This is bad, and I was like, yeah. One of the reasons we have to kind of keep this team intact is Biden's administration has done more for antitrust busting since, I don't know, maybe Teddy Roosevelt. And they were like, but then why is it still happening? Like, because it's not a button you press. Trusts are bust. That's not how it works.
That's the same.
Corporate lawyers.
It's the same like logically bankrupt stuff with like grocery price. It's like, it does not matter who the post-COVID president was. Yep. It was always going to happen.
Yep.
It was going to happen because of the way the world was.
Yep.
And it's so frustrating. Well, my eggs are, fuck you. Fuck your eggs. Like, I'm so tired of
by the way,
having to do this.
8984M, I think in his dorm room or in a bus, he's just laying out facts. I think 8984M is a vice president fan. I think he brought up this comment. Mondale created the modern VP role. Now he's saying this. Harris is the most tiebreaker votes in history. Some people ask, what'd she do? There you go. What she did. Yeah, absolutely. Check out Mr. Beat.
8984M needs to be on the focus group for VP that we have invented here on the young people messaging group.
The youth message board. Good stuff. Well, that kind of,
you know what, Walls? If Walls wants to do a podcast, Ken and I are available to produce.
We should. I think the presidential and vice presidential debates should be a live stream, and you get like a Jon Stewart. I don't care. Get a Jon Stewart, get a Joe Rogan, get a Bill Maher. I don't care. Put them all there, but just have a crazy sit down live stream with comments. I think I'd take it. It's a modern age debate.
Yeah, get someone.
Get somebody like everybody. I'm 90% joking.
Get John Cena, and that sounds like a joke, but I really mean it. Okay. Like John Cena is the most like everybody loves him person I think that we have left. And like he follows,
so far.
He openly admits, like, because if you look at most Twitter accounts that you see are followed by John Cena at this point, he follows every account, and he says it's so he sees the most opinions, which is an insane thing to say. But I think that like to the average American, they'd be like, "That's unity. That's what unity really is.
That's what it is. That's what it is." There you go. 2028 presidential debates hosted by John Cena.
By John Cena. He'll be retired by then. We know that.
Yeah, he will. He will.
Now, Eli said John Oliver saying he wants a British net questioning. I mean, Matty Gunner says I'll do it. So there you go. To have
Matty Gunner.
Matty Gunner is followed by John Cena.
The amount of if Matty Gunner was to host a presidential or VP debate, the amount of C words that would be dropped.
So many
on national television would be amazing.
So many. Matty Gunner would bring back the guillotine halfway through the debate.
Yeah. We're going to do this like the French did it. Matty does not sound like that at all. But in my head, he does.
Every British person is Peaky Blinders or Austin Powers, depending on the tone of the conversation.
Yeah, I was raised by Mike Myers' British accent, so you have to forgive me.
A Canadian comic working in New York's British accent.
Yeah, a Canadian, Scottish, who spent time in London doing improv. Yeah, he's all over the world.
Absolutely.
Matthew Stokes is okay. All right.
So
there
overall, VP debate, very overall milquetoast, frustrating. We'll see.
That's it. Yeah. For me, not a loss, maybe not a win, maybe a fourth quarter win on a penalty. Maybe an anticlimactic win, but it is what it is for me.
It's like in wrestling terms, the only sport I acknowledge, it's like 4-star match ends in roll up. It's like okay, we got it. Yeah, I would have liked to see the finish,
but the baby face was being pummeled the entire match, or not pummeled, but just couldn't get the edge, and then roll up for the win. There you go. There you go. We have put it all down into wrestling terms. The only sport Alden follows, though, as Vince McMahon would say, we're sports entertainment. With those weird.
We're past you, man. We're past you, Vince.
Yeah, we'll talk. I don't know. We got deaths. We got to talk about deaths.
Yeah, let's talk about some death. Let's talk about some death.
Then we can come back to another kind of death, the career of Vince McMahon.
Right. So I'm pulling up this death list, and I look forward to updates on if anyone is affected by Vance's lying. And like, I wish that we lived in a country where my final thought is I wish we lived in a country where, well, he's a smooth talker was not like a takeaway, but evidently it's still 1960 to some people.
Look, I think it's a problem around the world. I think it's a perception. What's the biggest skill of W? You kind of wanted to have a beer with him, and not you, but like, the
royal you.
Sit around and talk baseball with George W. I'll vote for
George W. You know what's interesting about George W. Bush? He's still alive, and he is not going to be in this celebrity death list that I'm about to read, even though that'll be an interesting day online when it happens. This begins. This is ABC News's roundup that I've pulled up here. This maybe is not the exact order, but I'm going to read from bottom up, so I think it is. Minus Pete Rose, who I will add on. Pete Rose, of course. So we have the legend Dame Maggie Smith passed away. We had Days of Our Lives star Drake Hogston died. We had John Ashton of Beverly Hills Cop fame. Right. We had the great Chris Christopherson passed away.
Oh, that's
nice. Tony award-winning Broadway star Gavin Creel passed away young at only 48. Right. We had NBA Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo. Apologies for pronunciation, but I believe it's Mutombo.
You got it. Dikembe Mutombo.
He passed away at 58. We had John Amos, known for Good Times and Roots. We had Broadway star and Oogie Boogie voice actor Ken Page from Nightmare Before Christmas, and then as well as Pete Rose, all going in rapid succession. A few of those in like 36 hours. They say celebrities die in threes. That's really just the human brain making patterns.
It's like 11-11. Yeah,
100%. It's like 11-11. But right there, a whole list to the point where we were texting, and I was like, we should probably bring up we don't do in memoriam every time it happens, but it's been so many and so much of the news cycle that if you have any particular thoughts on the specifics, I mentioned Pete Rose too because his doc had just dropped before he passed only a couple weeks ago. So there's that element of it. And then we'll expand outward into just why we care and why these things affect us at all.
Can I kick to you here on something?
Yeah.
Dame Maggie Smith, you are of a Harry Potter generation, and let's acknowledge now the big issues and shadows that hang over that franchise. We're very aware of them, and those can come up at all because I'm sure it might factor into what you feel. How do you feel? How do you feel that some of the stories that emerged? I thought it was hilarious when people like wands up for Maggie Smith, and people would comment she would hate this. So I love that about her. And a talent for many, 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 many decades. But you, how's your heart?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with Harry Potter. I mean, as you said, caveats. Harry Potter is a thing that I don't talk about online it's part of my brand, right? It's unavoidable. I have a Harry Potter tattoo right here. Like it's a thing that I got to deal with. And if anyone wants to give me money so I can cover it up, let me know. I'll take your money. But it's like, as your co-host and producing partner Joseph Scrimshaw has talked about, like it's one of those things where it's like you want to be careful about how you present certain things in light of like new information and like I know that there's lots of people that I know, some of whom are transgender, that like this is a personal issue for them, and they also grew up fantasy fans, and to have those two things of like pop cultural identity and personal identity collide and the pain and like it's valid. And I'm even at the point now personally where it's like I've had a little bit of it's usually because of the autumn season that I get a little tug at my heart of like I want to throw on Philosopher's Stone, and then I'm like do I even want to log it on my Letterboxd because like I don't want people to think that you start to think like so much of it is I don't want people to think that I think
that's protective, and that's not even like you hiding some truth. It's just like this could do harm for some other person. Then
exactly, it could be considered promo because I'm a broadcaster, even as small as I may be. It's like the platform that I have. So
I get you.
All that being said, in the historical context of the early 2000s when those came out, the power of those as a cinematic achievement is that they might be the greatest feat of casting ever done ever.
Yeah.
Like we talk about, the original Star Wars trio, of course. You go
Sure.
all the way back, go all the way back to Judy Garland, like as Dorothy,
Yeah.
like in terms of like perfectly cast things. But they had to do, they banked an entire world on 3 unknown children, and then it's like, okay, so what do you do to support those children? They got them top to bottom in every single installment, the greatest that the UK has to offer. The greatest, and it is like an astonishing adult cast in those movies. And one of them is Professor McGonagall, Minerva McGonagall, who is Dumbledore's right hand. She's the head of Gryffindor House, and she's there for the heroes, and she's there in every installment. She's a key character, a key mentor, and yeah, it was like she had this sternness, but this like whimsy to her, and like she's immediately captivating. And her character McGonagall can change into a cat, and so it's like that immediately wows you as a child of like, whoa, what? She's a lady, she's a cat. And from there, it's like you realize quickly, like her, like Sir Richard Harris, like Alan Rickman, like Gary Oldman, David Thewlis, the list goes on and on and on. Oh my God, I love these people. They have some of the craziest careers of all time. Similarly to how like you get Gary Oldman in Harry Potter, and then the next year he's in Batman. And you're like, whoa, it's the same guy. Then I started to discover Spielberg, and you go and you watch Hook, and you're like, oh my God, that's Maggie Smith. And then you go over, more modern, Downton Abbey takes over, and it's like a whole new group of fans find her. And like, she was one of those people who, because she was playing old when she was younger and then got old, that she was like eternally sort of like a pop cultural grandma to so many people that when she was gone, I was like, wow, like Maggie Smith's gone. I kind of felt like she'd be there forever because she never changed, which was surreal in a weird way.
Yeah. Oh man, no, well said. Yeah, I feel it. I get it. And it's some
sister act.
Sister act. Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, and I saw a lot of people. I get it. Like when someone like this passes or does something, they'll say Harry Potter's Maggie Smith, and people are like, but what about this one? It's like, but you have to accept the truth that is it. That is the number one. That's the headline because she affected so many lives in that.
Yeah, role. And it's
so
like when
like Sister Act. Yeah.
When it comes to those situations too, like it's one of those things where that person did not control information, obviously, that they did not have at the time. Nor did anyone, nor did Chris Columbus, nor did anybody that worked on those early ones or the later ones. And so it's like noting it in their career. It's like if somebody passed away that heavily worked with like Diddy or any of these like people in music, where it's like, okay, actually not even Diddy. Like I'm not even going to use that as an example. Let's like back it up even further. It's like if you were listing the discography of Jay-Z. It's like you have to list the collab album with Kanye, like you have to because it's there, and like that was the whole time, and like you don't have to spend time on it, like that's the thing. I think that's the thing is that you can say like best known for Harry Potter, and then talk about other stuff. I think there's a way to go about it.
No, I agree with you on that.
But yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah. Okay. Love it. Yeah. For me, of the list of that, Chris Christopherson is not someone that I talked about often, everything, but he's one of those good guys to have around. He's so multi-talented. I think people might know him from Blade or some of his, being an elder statesman, but this guy's one of the best songwriters of all time. He is a rock star, a template for what a rock star is, and he transitions into performing well before I was born, so you just kind of grew up thinking it was that. But it's a big loss, and a lot of people sharing the story of him on stage with Sinead O'Connor after she tore up the picture of the Pope and him standing by her, and the story with Toby Keith and everything like that. So yeah, a big loss. Yeah, great.
The Toby Keith story is phenomenal. I'm so glad it went on again.
Yeah, and for me, like sports people, growing up a sports fan in the '90s, like Dikembe Mutombo. And the '80s just is a constant presence, and it's just weird. And when it's these rash of stars, we get death and we get age. It's no surprises, but when it happens, and you're just kind of like, that's a bizarre thing. Because I think for like with Dikembe Mutombo, I go back to junior high. I start thinking about that, and then you start thinking about your own mortality. You start thinking about it. It can spin off rather quickly when a sports star dies, because you're like, but I'm still 12 and they're still playing. What's happened?
Yeah.
And now passed away, brain cancer. Shout out to Rob Schneider for him, blaming that on the jab. Great classic, all time piece of shit. Rob Schneider's turned out to be
Absolutely a piece of shit. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that. Yeah, and it's weird with these. Like you're right. It's every day. Every day, someone of note passes away, as well as so many people in our own lives. But we just don't hear those stories. But this was it's unnerving sometimes. I always say, like, are people getting out of here? What do they know? What do they know? What do they know? Who's coming? Is it the lizard people? Are they on the way? Are they
Like the lizard people invasion? They had the intel. The intel goes down. It starts with your olds, like Dame Maggie Smith. She's been around long enough to know first.
Yeah.
And then, it's sad. And then, but I want to get your thoughts on Pete Rose.
Yeah.
Because of the timing and the fact that I haven't seen the doc, so I can't say if it's a vindicating piece or a redeeming piece.
It is neither. It is all things. I honestly would recommend something like, I know you don't follow sports. I would recommend you watch it, when you have time. And there's other things on the depth chart to watch first. Rewatch, Hacks, which is on my list to watch for the first time. But I actually think you'd get it and enjoy it, because it does a great job of, I think I've talked about this in other spots. I apologize if I'm repeating some stuff. But it does a great job of setting the scene of why he's important and what he did and how big he was, not unlike we got to talk about Cosby doc, but that one is, I'd say, a little bit more important in terms of what it was discussing versus just gambling and sports. But it took time to say, hey, and it wasn't a celebration. It's just like, hey, here's why. Here's why this is as big as it is. And I've changed over the years. I have been a do not put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, but the doc does a good job of laying out that that's a museum who doesn't need to even have these rules, because there's items and plaques commemorating Pete Rose in the hall, just he himself is not inducted. And it's separate from Major League Baseball, but it has to follow, or chooses to follow, Major League Baseball's edicts. So them making him ineligible for life. There's a player, Roberto Alomar, who's in the Hall of Fame, who after he was in the Hall of Fame, he's younger, he's in his 50s, he's like of my sports generation. He did some heinous crimes, and he's on baseball's ineligible list, but he's still in the hall. And the only thing I'll say, the doc runs through how Pete at times is pretty bad. He's a liar. He can't be trusted. He was skeezy. There's definitely some questionable, I'll say it nicely, questionable relationships with very young ladies in his life that might have been dealt with differently in more modern times. So he's not a good dude. They interview his son, and they talk, but it goes into it. But he's also not the worst human ever created, but he's not a good dude, and then he brought a lot on himself, but that has nothing to do with what he did on the field.
Sure.
And there's so many things, and Pete himself says it towards the end. Again, when I say they're talking about lies, it's like a Hogan clip. When Hulk Hogan's like, and then I tried out for bass in Metallica, and they cut to Lars going, don't even know who he is, right? Like there's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's that kind of stuff with Pete. He's like, I never been in Gold's Gym in my life. Cut to a picture of him from 1981 in Gold's Gym, right? Like there's a lot of that goes on. So he denies a lot of the stuff he did. But it's complicated because baseball, NFL, they now are, their sponsorships are now with DraftKings, and so gambling's in the sport. So now people are like, well, what was so bad? But he violated rules. And A. Bartlett Giamatti, Paul's dad. Yeah. I think if he hadn't died, I think Pete would have.
Wait, really?
I think they would have changed it. Yeah.
Oh, Paul Giamatti's father? I didn't know. I didn't know he was connected. Yeah.
A. Bartlett Giamatti, commissioner of baseball, very short time. This was his thing, and I think it was like within a week of banning Pete Rose for life, or saying Mr. Rose has committed actions that have stained the game. A. Bartlett Giamatti is one of the best speakers ever. He could have been a president type of vibe. He died of a heart attack. Like the whole situation can't be put on Pete. A. Bartlett Giamatti was a smoker, and but the stress of it. He died. I was at Dodger Stadium seeing the game. They announced he passed away of a heart attack. It was surreal. It's surreal.
Wow.
So it's all there. But anyways, I want to get to the final point here. I've been a don't put Pete in the hall for a long time. At the end of the doc, he says something. He goes, if I had been an alcoholic, if I had abused my wife, if I had, committed all these kind of crimes, I'd be in the Hall of Fame. The one thing I did was gamble on a sport I love, because he does have an addiction. Not an excuse, but he has an addiction. Mm-hmm. And it was this weird point where 2 wrongs don't make a right type of thing, but he's not wrong, because the sports world, and I love it, but the sports world is full of domestic abusers. Mm-hmm. Sports world is full of these questionable characters that we look past. And I try not to. On my sports card ASMR channel, someone got really mad that I pulled a Kurt Schilling card, and I was like, this is a piece of shit human being. How dare you? He was one of the greatest players of that era. I don't give a fuck about him and his bloody.
It's also not what you said.
It's not what I said.
You didn't say worst player. Yeah,
he is. You want to talk about the bloody sock game? Yeah, I'll talk about it. It's a great historic sports moment. He's a piece of shit human being. So it's like, yeah, it's weird. It's complicated. I highly recommend you watch it. It's 4 parts. And so for him to die again, not unlike days after announcing his band, Bartlett Giamatti dies. For Pete to die the year the doc comes out, it's surreal. And I think he'll end up in the Hall of Fame, and people will think that's the work. They think it's a work. They were just waiting for him to die. They didn't want to give him the satisfaction of being on stage. That's not a fact. That's a conspiracy. That's not a fact. But I think it could happen. I think we've recontextualized. But but make no mistake, not a good dude. Not a good dude. At many points.
And that's what I was going to ask you, because I saw a take that in my layman's understanding and just like knowing Pete Rose from showing up in then WWF and getting tombstoned by a conservative mayor. I was, which like sounds like a Mad Lib, but it is a fact. Just a weird timeline. I was going to ask, I saw this point and I agreed with it. Every single website that would have led with the death of Pete Rose as a headlining story, which is every sports website, is sponsored in some way by a gambling organization. And on top of the fact, he is, and this is where we get into like Saul Goodman, like, but what the law says, what it really says is lifetime ban. He is dead now. So it's like, does that not, like, it sounds silly.
It's like Jon Snow. You just pitched the Jon Snow, my watch has ended. I died.
Exactly.
I'm alive now, but I died.
I did die. My watch has ended. You are 1,000% right. I'm so glad you put it in those terms. That's exactly what it is. It's like, he's dead. And so I feel like it sounds like a joke, but like very seriously, like, is this a conversation that they should be having?
I think look, what's changed for me, I still, I do come from a law and order background, and go look on YouTube. A. Bartlett Giamatti's announcement of it was eloquent and forceful and strong. And that's the line. Mr. Rose has committed acts that have stained the game. Like, it is the one thing you don't do. They say it every year, and he did it. And he refused to admit it publicly for a long time. But in this, he took the ban in exchange for not admitting it. And maybe that's a generalization of it, but that's essentially what Giamatti and him came to an agreement of. But he broke a rule. But then you look back and you recontextualize things exactly what I saw a great tweet of Pete Rose, 83, has passed away. Major League Baseball is very sad to share this news. Use the code Pete Rose RIP to get $1,000 off your first bets. It's like, they're not wrong.
And Pete's own point that you brought up from the end of the doc is true. And like we've seen this point get brought up in a lot of situations, in the NFL with like Kaepernick and the blacklisting of Kaepernick. It's like, you're going to blacklist somebody for social justice, but you guys platform people that abuse their wives, people that abuse animals, people that are sexual harassers. You platform people left, fucking right, and sideways all the time.
Ignore it. And they ignore it. I at the All-Star game, I was having some lunch with my friends from a fantasy baseball league I've been in for 25 years. And again, and I always say this, good people, good dudes. What that means is not to write off any voting records they have, but it's just they're average folks. They're good folks. They have a good laugh. They don't hurt anybody. They just see the world a certain way, right? And that's sometimes the frustration. As I switched sides because I didn't want to be that. I'm a good dude. I don't know if gays should get married. Like I was like, I ain't that anymore, right? That ain't me. But we were talking. Trevor Bauer comes up at the All-Star game. Man, you know what Trevor Bauer is? He's a great pitcher, a known asshole. His teammates hate him. There was a crime, a sexual crime that he was accused of that in the end, there might have been wishy-washy, you know what I mean? One of those cases where you're like, but he got banned. He also was a MAGA. He's a horrible person on every level. But he's pitching in Mexico, or was pitching in Mexico this year in the Mexican Baseball League. And a highlight shows up. And all three of my friends at this table are like looking up. They're like, he should be pitching in Major League Baseball. This is amazing. I literally kind of like put down my apps, my chicken wings and my pizza rolls. I was like, he's horrible. He's horrible. Well, I mean, he wasn't found guilty, but he's a great pitcher. It is frustrating that thing. But he's a great singer. He's a great actor. And that didn't used to frustrate me 10, 15 years ago. Art from artists, it's a different conversation. But we're past that now to me, I think, where I'm like, yeah, no. He is a great singer. He sex traffics someone. I don't care. Like, don't care.
I mean, it's the exact same conversation happens with Brock Lesnar right now.
Yeah.
Well, under the new ownership, Brock is one of their biggest draws. I don't give a shit if he draws the entire nation. I don't care if he can. I don't care if he could draw all of Italy to the Coliseum. I don't care. Like it doesn't matter.
Same with I'm a fan of Brock. I loved his return. I thought it was his return that night. He comes back and faces Cena. That was a great wrestling moment. I watched him UFC. I root for any pro wrestler in UFC or mixed martial arts and everything. I was a fan of Brock, and he was always probably a little questionable just on his personality. But but done. And watching the McMahon doc, McMahon's a fascinating character. He should be studied, but it was a little hard. I even think on this channel or my Blathering show was like someone. I think my friend Big Lou was like, "You gonna watch it?" I was like, "I don't know." Even you texted me. I was like, "I don't know." Because what's come out, and the doc tries to deal with it, and I'm 30 minutes from finishing it. Maybe there's a good punch on the end. He should be studied. He also is everything in terms of, we've talked about it. He is a genius in a lot of ways, but he also has held back wrestling in a lot of ways. Blah, blah, blah. But what finally came to light, done in my book. I don't give a damn about what he did. And I just wish that was more shared.
Yeah. A reckoning needs to come. A reckoning needs to come in sports. A reckoning needs to come in pop culture. Reckoning needs to come in digital media. Look straight at the camera. Like it's like how many people do we all know the rumblings about? How many people do we know? And sometimes not even the rumblings, the very loud, openly racist, openly woman-hating shit that has happened and continues to happen. It happens to people we know and love. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's no accountability because human beings are cowardly by nature, is what I've realized as I get closer to 30, is that this is a cowardly species. Consistently disappointing in a lot of ways. So that's death talk. I mean, I guess the final thing about it would be, and the why and how for us personally is, why do we feel the way we feel when they die? Because I have like even some family members that are like, well, like, why do you get more upset about celebrity deaths than you? Like, this was the thing when Carrie passed away in 2016. When Carrie Fisher died, I sobbed. I left work that day like I had lost someone I knew my entire life. But that's because I did in that way. And I've had people say, well, why does that matter and everything? And it's like, because I think it's like the relationship between yourself and what somebody makes that forms you is sometimes different than the relationship that is two-way, even with family, because that's full of like complex stuff that you both have to deal with. So it's weird. But
before we end, that's death talk. Kingsport Cal says no love for John Amos. I know what you're doing, Cal. You're insinuating something that's going to get my cookout invitation revoked, and I don't appreciate it, Cal.
I brought up John Amos in the rundown.
I love John Amos in Die Hard 2 as Major Grant. Great villain turn.
Die Hard 2.
Die Hard 2. All right, yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. That's where that's from.
Die Harder. Die Harder.
I love John Amos. And for me, Roots was, I think I was alive, but it was like, it was 1 or 2, whatever the year it came out, but it was like one of my earliest pop culture memories. You come of age at like 3 or 4 or 5, and you get sense memories of stuff. LeVar Burton, John Amos, Roots, important, powerful actor. Love them. He filled up a screen, and it's again, it's one of those things of like, it's just so weird. You grow up with this person in your pop culture Rolodex of who you know and love, and they're gone. It affects you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Charlie's comment here: you don't owe anyone an explanation as to why you feel what you feel. Yeah, 100%. You don't.
I agree with that.
Okay, so and 894M, both fathers from Coming to America passing in very close proximity to each other, which is true. The last thing we want to touch on today, which was not originally in the plan, but then came up. I'm gonna do my best to get through this without being a sassy little bitch. Which is
breaking
news.
Very hard. Alden Diaz confirms he's a sassy little bitch.
That's true. It's like people on the internet can't handle discourse at all, just in general. They especially can't handle multiple stories. You're all very funny. You're all very funny. Yes, congratulations. It's like we get this story, which I'm going to say right now. I mean, no disrespect to James Hibbard, who I think is a good writer. I have a copy of his book, Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon.
Great book about.
I think Hibbard's a good reporter. I think the Hollywood Reporter article that came out, "Is Disney bad at Star Wars?" is so unbelievably done in bad faith, and is such a badly written article. And that, again, is not personal. It's just, and again, editors have their say, and there's a co-writer credit, I think, at the end, or a contributions credit. Like this article starts the day of discourse, and it begins with, like, first of all, getting the timeline wrong, and like just weird inconsistencies, and like trying to have the cake and eat it too, and like that just, I don't recommend anybody read it because I just don't like it. And it really annoyed me. Well, it starts with like, remember the scene in Force Awakens when Rey and Finn are looking for a ship and they say the garbage will do? That's kind of the attitude some fans have with Star Wars, where they just take whatever. And then the next paragraph.
Here's what. Go fuck yourself.
That's the beginning of the article, Ken. It's not even an exaggeration.
Fuck yourself on every fucking thing you think and stand on. That's the dumbest start.
But then the next paragraph, and I'm not exaggerating. Anyone can fact check me on this. You could fact check me, unlike Vance, who is immune from being fact checked. The very next article is, however, in fairness, they've all gotten mostly great critical reviews. They've had a few billion-dollar hits. The streaming numbers have been very good. It's like, then what is this? Is this clickbait, the article? Like, you're not even taking a side. You're not even
Even a place like Variety has to clickbait to survive. That's where we are in this world.
Yeah. Well, that's Hollywood Reporter. Now we go to Variety.
Oh, Hollywood Reporter. Yeah.
Now we go to
Variety was the other one. Yeah.
So like that set the tone of the morning. So I'm establishing that to say I was already crabby. But then we get to this Variety story, and the Variety story, which come into Wendy's, by the way, and bless up for all the Wendy's employees that are going to have people in my age group saying dialogue to them in the drive-thru. God bless. Jesus Christ. Asking for the secret Krabby Patty formula. And they're like, man, I make minimum wage. Just fucking drive up. Just drive up to the window.
Love that.
So we get Variety. And Variety, I would say, on the first level, an attempt was made, and I guess that should be commended, to like finally discuss some of this stuff. It was about toxic fan culture.
Oh, with the PR thing and everything.
Yeah. So like, because this stuff about focus groups comes from within that article. So the article is all about fandom, PR having to deal with it, studios having to deal with it, et cetera, et cetera. I would, as many other people have, argue these are not fans. So you've already missed the boat on like the language. Like you've already whiffed sort of in the presentation. And that's a much longer conversation. We're already at an hour and 9 minutes of this episode. We don't have time to do it. But in that is this report and this anonymous studio executive tips, about because why would they stand by anything that they say? Same as during the strikes, when they were saying they're going to bleed people out of their apartments. Now they're like, okay, well, we have these groups of super fans that will see things and will let us know. The word retaliate was used. Fans will retaliate because of that. And if it's early enough in the development, and or if it's still being made, then we might be able to course correct on certain things. And I don't want to speak for you or anyone, but I would say that is one of the bleakest, dumbest fucking things I have ever heard in my life. And I've heard a lot of dumb shit. You know, like I grew up on the internet. Like I grew like these are our streets. You know, we weren't drinking water out of the hose. We were here.
This used to be our playground. Okay.
Honestly, yeah.
The 1989 motion picture Dick Tracy. There you go. No, actually, no. I'm incorrect on that. That is 1992's League of Their Own.
Wow. But you know what? You got both movie release dates. Scott Mance will be very proud of you. But it's like, and then everybody has their take, including me. I say what I have to say. You know,
sassy bitch.
I generally am good at wording a tweet. I know how many characters I get. I'm good at sentence structure.
I would argue you're too good.
Possibly. And so I do this tweet, whatever, it's popping off. I've since muted it. It's still getting traction, whatever. And I would know every single stupid reply, many of them paying Elon Musk $8 a month to be higher in my replies because they're pathetic, is some variation of, because I said fans don't get the finals. They don't get a say. The audience needs to be reminded that they're the audience, which I firmly believe. And then all these people that think they're so clever showing up to be like, we do get the final say. We do get the final say because this is capitalism. We do get the final say because I'm a customer. We do get the final say because I get to decide if I go. Yeah. And I'm going to say right down the barrel of this camera, you are a fucking moron. You do not know what you are saying, because the premise of the conversation is not about complete things available for choice. The premise of the conversation is about process before it's made. And if you are so proud to be a customer, then just log off, sit down, shut the fuck up, open your streaming services, and be a customer. Those of us that are trying to make things and have opinions about how things are made are busy. We have to deal with this shit. It's annoying. It's annoying. And then I had some dumb fuck be like, oh, well, what do you know? You're a podcast host. And it's like, I checked his age, 24-year-old. Dude, when I was 24, I already had executive on my business cards. Fuck off. I don't want to hear it. It's annoying. This whole thing is annoying. It's done in complete bad faith. And if you think these focus groups are a good idea, you're an idiot. And if you're watching this and that applies to you, I'm sorry. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
I failed at the sassy bitch thing.
By 24, I had wrestled 2 Asian boy gang members down to the ground and fought for my life over.
Maybe we need to bring back. Maybe we need to bring back fighter, wrestler, nightstick Ken. Like, maybe that's what we need.
I go to violence a lot. I don't condone violence, but the problem is, ain't a lot of people have been punched in the face, ain't a lot of people wrestled around for control of a knife, and not knowing the outcome. I think we should just have pit fighting. Matty Gunner could set it up. So seriously, no, you're a sassy bitch. Yeah, I go so many different places with this. I'll start here, and I agree. And I'll tell you something. I agree with you. I don't, and they're right in the sense of, yeah, you can decide not to watch it, and nowadays you can tweet it out, and nowadays you can go into Wendy's and say, this isn't the Krabby Patty I ordered. I want to speak to your manager. You can do that. You can be that person. That option exists. But yeah, it is about the process to get there. And I will start here by saying this isn't new, and I was saying this off air. This isn't new. This has been part of the problem for decades now, if not since the beginning of art in this form, film, TV, comedy, more. So it's not new. The wrinkle is the social issues attached to it, right? And that's where I start getting a little angry and turn to a sassy bitch as well. So I'm trying to parse that out and put that on a shelf for a second, if that makes sense, Alden, right?
Sure.
Like, one of the biggest problems is you're going to have a lot of assholes going, please, only white, straight, male heroes, thank you, or we'll retaliate. But prior to that, even there's a lot of good faith conversations I've had where I'm just like, you get it. Wrestling comes up a lot because I'm just like, for years, not only was I a fan, then got into the business, worked with a lot of people who would go on to the feds, who would go up north, who would go down south, the big names. And it's like, you understand the process. So it's like when someone who's not an asshole would come up and be like, oh, you know what WWE should do? Blah, blah, blah. Be like, you don't know the first step of how to make that happen. And I think that's part of the frustration. That's always been art versus the consumer. And despite the very problematic history of Henry Ford, I think I was just watching an interview with George Lucas going around of like, I think Lucas quoted Ford of like, if he had listened to his customers, everyone would have wanted a new horse. Right. And I think that's the truth about art. David Bowie makes a decision to go in a different direction. He does that because he wants to, not because he wants to check a box. And we see that. And I think that hasn't changed. That's always been there. So I'm not completely frustrated as news. I'm just like, yeah, at least now it's out in the open. This is what they do. The social issue thing is the bigger problem. And we can get into that. But the final thing I'll say in it too is like, you know some of the names that, and it's always, I sound like I'm name dropping. These people don't remember my first name. But I go to some parties. I have some mutual friends. There's some acquaintances who Oscar winners, stuff like that. I hang out at these parties. That was just one couple weeks ago. Their takes on their creators, these people that have pitched to Lucasfilm, their takes on Star Wars are horrible. Their takes on Star Wars are shit, and are talk about media literacy. I have to sit there and explain. Like I'm brought in as a heavy hitter. To be like, I know you didn't like how Solo got his last name, but let me tell you what the artist intended behind it, what the scene does for the character for the next 40 years of his life. Whether you like that or not can be debated. But you didn't get that. You're debating something you didn't get. And so it's frustrating. This is there. It's all angles of frustration.
And it's frustration also because it's like, and again, we do, just by the way our lives have gone, and the fact that we pay attention to this stuff and we read into it and we know a lot and we know people, like we have a little bit more knowledge in that way, especially you being out there and knowing people directly. But it's like the frustration also is because it doesn't need to be this way, and it so easily could not be. It's like you are ceding ground to people because you're fucking cowards. And I don't know if it's cowardice or if it's laziness. And normally it's like, or both. It's like, normally I don't like to be like, like when Acolyte was canceled, there was a lot of, well, they're going to capitulate to the views of, it's not capitulate to the views of, it's the views of these people are influencing morons. You look at the top podcasts and it's Rogan, Hawk to a Girl, Candace Owens, like all this bullshit. And it's
God bless Haley Welch.
Yeah, who is already out there just like, throwing in with Elon Musk. So it's like her fall was sharp and quick. But it's like, it's not that Lucasfilm or Disney, which is also important to like acknowledge that they are not one organization. It's one organization that owns the other. And that the Lucasfilm folks, they can want whatever they want to want. They can want to do whatever they want to do. That's not how it works. But it's like, oh, you guys are capitulating to those views and you're enforcing that. It's not that. It's that we live in a culture where they are affecting the numbers and they are affecting the things that happen. And so it's in a roundabout way, there's impact, but it's not like the idea that these people suddenly, after making Acolyte and pitching it, approving the pitch in the room and all this stuff, just decided to stop making it. It does not make sense. No. It's not true. They found out when we found out, number one. And number two, it's like, if they had the choice, it's like, you don't think that like the women that run Lucasfilm in particular, because it is predominantly women on that higher leadership level at this point, like wouldn't want to keep doing it. Like that's logically bankrupt. But the people above them that are just looking at these things as stats, that don't know really what social media is, don't know really about the grift or anything, like, they're like, well, clearly there's a disconnect. Maybe we should ask some of those nerds. And that's where we're at now, is maybe we should ask some of them. And it's like, that is horrendously stupid. It is so stupid because even, as you just touched on, even the most like professional and well-intentioned, like a great writer, some screenplay credits, whatever, even if they can miss it. I'll give you
some names off air and you'll be like, huh?
If even they can miss it, and look, I'm not going to be like, because that's the other thing too, is that like, a lot of these reply guys love to be like, what, because you know better? I'm not saying that I know better. I'm not saying I want to be in the room. I'm not saying that I want that. I'm saying that room shouldn't exist. The room should not exist.
The room should not
exist. That's the thing. I look at my Ray ideas between 2015 and 2017. They were dumbass ideas. They were dumb. I had fun at the time being like, I think Ray is a student of Luke's that they hid away. That was my whole thing. I think I think they wiped her mind for her own safety. Like, that's everything.
I think we got a lot of mileage out of that sideways look from Han to Rey and the Falcon when she's like, "I've never seen so much green," and he's like, "Huh." We're all like, "There it is, the smirk of the secret. He knows.
He knows." Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. But imagine having those people in the room with JJ. Imagine having JJ on Collider Jedi Council, no cameras running, telling him and Ryan what they're gonna do. Like,
yeah. There's something you said there. That was you being a wonderfully sassy bitch today. Let's talk to the nerds, right? And this is one of the problems I've run into a lot, and I think we all run into it, where I always cite green room conversations with comics because they're people I know and work with and who are generally, again, good faith, good people, right side politically, that kind of thing. Right on the right side, not a right side or the right side. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. D's not
right
R's
spectrum.
in front of their names.
Yeah.
But they have that, man, Star Wars fans, right? And yes, Star Wars fans and any fandom fan is going to be prickly and there's going to have these that, but it's not that. And you have to kind of go through this, like, here's, like you were talking about, here's the grifter, here's the second tier grifter who's not as bad, but he's just kind of selling, that lie. And then it gets out to the normal person who's like, I don't know, I didn't watch Acolyte. Rotten Tomatoes said it was bad. Because that person doesn't know, right? But that translates also into some of these studio people. Scott Bromley, producer of the Star Wars show, put out a great tweet today of like saying like, or just, let the company's social PR and social media teams address this instead of going through 17 layers of corporate executive decision makers who do not even understand what the internet is. Who see, they didn't like, these fans didn't like what we did with Luke. And so they're not grasping. They write it off. And some of those conversations I've had at parties or with people in this industry who are at a certain level, who still look at me when I go, I have a digital media show. Oh, you're on YouTube? You're on YouTube? Of course, why? They're making six figures. They're got contracts with studios. They're pitching here. They're winning Oscars. So even though digital media is fun, right? I go on Michael Rosenbaum or whatever the fuck his name's podcast. So they're still looking down on it all. So this whole thing we're talking about reeks of these studio people and some high level executives who don't understand. This is I had this argument. I was like, you don't, and I'm not going to list the names of the channels at the center of this, but we know those channels. Those 1 million subscriber channels or higher are affecting your general audience. Like you were saying. So it is a business decision that is somewhat affected by these grifters who are selling a lie that Joe Schmo's picking up on, and you're all writing it off as those dumb nerds. Yeah. I guess we'll go talk to the dumb nerds. And then you're also wondering privately at parties, man, why did my show not work? Or wow, man, our fans really didn't like we cast a black actor. Fans, right? And it's like, whoa, you're not, it's not seeing fans. It.
And they don't see the correlation. It's like Joe Rogan can say the dumbest fucking thing you've ever heard about blatant science that he gets wrong and spreads lies and spreads all this shit. And then we see that and we acknowledge that. And you'll have people be like, it's so irresponsible. Spotify to platform Joe Rogan. And it is. Spotify. Yeah. But then in the same breath, they will look at the nerd versions of him, many of whom we know exactly who I'm referring to, and they don't see how the same thing can happen.
Yes.
They don't see how the same thing can happen.
Yes.
They'll acknowledge one and not the other, because we still, and this is something that I said earlier about AI, we still, in the same way that they look at you and they basically treat you like a hobbyist with a ham radio, like it's like we don't think that art matters as much as what's happening in medical and science. And you know what? Maybe it doesn't. Yeah. But it's like the fact that trying to get the boomers and Gen Xers to care about AI is hard because they don't see what we do as work. And they don't see this as work. And that same thing happens in the disconnect of level of care and correlation. And so now we're at this place where it's like people are missing it on the industry level. They're certainly missing it on the business level. And then on the fan level that we engage in with Casually Talk and Force Center and Octo Radio and all of our friends' shows and the comments. And like what we then deal with, and I've already seen, is that even people with good hearts, good views, people who I would consider to be smart, like, already in the last 24 hours, I've seen this reaction. Well, I guess it means we're not going to get any more big swings. And then on top of that, this is all because Rian Johnson made a smart movie in 2017 and it pissed people off. And because of Last Jedi, we're not going to get. And look, I understand that. I understand the because of Last Jedi, because it was a huge shatter point. Not to use another Star Wars term, but it was a huge point. And it's like, I get it, but that is also incorrect history. That's also incorrect. That was just a huge moment. So it's like, how are you going to tell me this is because of Last Jedi? Tell that to John Boyega, who 2 years prior to that was already going through hell, and Daisy, and it's like
Mary Sue
and Mary Sue, and then
conversation normalized by someone people looked up to in the industry who's now no longer in the industry. Yeah.
For obvious reasons, who was a fucking creep. And like, but then rewind that to Gamergate, rewind that to what Ahmed Best and Jake Lloyd went through. Like, look at Peter Jackson, like the pressure that was put on the Jackson crew to delete those Arwen scenes, that when that leaked, that they were going to add more Arwen action to Two Towers and like all the forums in the 2000s. Like, it's been a steady build to where we are now. And everyone puts it in terms of like, it's because my favorite took risks and your favorite Rise of Skywalker, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian is safe, and that's why we are where we are. No, shut the fuck up. You're missing the point, and you're not helping. If you don't want to help, sit down.
Yeah,
like if you don't know how to help, sit down. Isn't even better. Yeah, want to and don't know how. It's like you're creating this binary of smart versus dumb based on your tastes. It's the Andor shit too. Like. Oh, we only one more season of Andor, and then it's all going to be safe cameo shows. Shut up. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actual business and culture.
And the culture of it, too. One of our big things at Force Center is definitely something that Joseph has led in conversations that I 100% agree to. It's the we still are dealing with the playground dynamics, and that's why, to break it down easy to start with, John and Dave play with their action figures. That we're still looking down upon it, much like the nerds getting bullied on the playgrounds in the 80s. And so these executives and these creatives at a higher level are so disconnected from the ground. One of the concepts and themes behind Book of Boba Fett, how a leader should have their feet on the ground, they are so that they just write it off. When I go, oh, this channel, blank and blank, they're saying this stuff. Oh, really? These nerds in their basement? No, that person's YouTube channel outdraws your network. Network's still different, but outdraws your streaming show by views. Yeah. By a lot. On a weekly basis.
And you don't.
And they get ad money. On a weekly basis, that person's stream is outdrawing Andor. They're powerful. You think you're writing them off as nerds, and now you're going to invite their acolytes. They're not, but the studios are going to invite their acolytes into these rooms. Yeah, and I don't know. And Alden, the answer might be move to Mars. I don't know.
And this is a thing, and it's a thing, ironically, that our first industry, terrestrial broadcasting, dead as it may be, was kind of arrived at this conclusion at a corporate level early. I mean, I remember my first month at iHeart, I'm walking around the studio and I'm already kind of acclimated, and I got my cubicle and everything, and my little assistant, and on the other side of the building is what is WIOD, and that's a legacy news and everything, and every single show on there is conservative. It's South Florida. They at the time Limbaugh wasn't in hell yet. So we still had it was Rush and Glenn Beck and Hannity and One Big Block as one of the affiliates and everything. And I remember asking my producer that I worked for, I'm like, I get it, I know where I live, but why doesn't the opposite exist? Does it exist in Portland? Does it exist? What is this? And he was like, he goes, blue radio, he goes, does not live. He's like, and left-leaning radio will never catch. He's like, it's just the ratings are always bad and never survives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
They tried with Air America and it was badly run. And Sam Cedar emerged from that. Mark Maron took,
So it's like they got it. They conceded and gave up. Now I'm not saying you need to give up, but it's like people do know, but it's like that's the dead industry, and so that knowledge does not transfer. And it's like what we're realizing is these focus groups and everything. This idea is fundamentally bad, and when you look at the amount of people and the correlation too of who's replying and people blowing up my shit right now, which I should be clear, I'm not trying to be they're hurting me. I muted it. I'm a white heterosexual man online. It's I can deal with this in a way that some of our dear friends can't, and that privilege is important, and I'm happy to draw fire any day. But it's when you look at the correlations of like who's replying of, well, it's my right, I'm a customer, we vote, we get the final say, we all this. And then I joke about like them paying for Twitter, but that's an important thing to note because it is a worshiping of capitalism, and it is and of their role in it, and it's America's fundamental lie of the customer is always right, which is like, one of my favorite films, one of my Letterboxd 4 favorites, is the 2015 Steve Jobs movie. That movie is like that, it's one of my Bibles. Like I think that's my favorite script, and it's again, complicated man, and like obviously that's a movie version of him, but it's like, yeah, it's honest about his really shitty things he did as a father and like as a businessman. But in his like creative philosophy that they talk about in the Isaacson biography, which the script is based on, and he talks about the fact that like the customer, the idea that the customer is always right was said by, I promise you, a customer. And like that's something that he says in it, and also he's like, and John Scully, played by Jeff Daniels, is like, the customer wants options, Steve. He's like, they have options, buy it or don't. And it's like, I internalized that the second I saw that film. I was like, I agree. He's right. He's like, Bob Dylan doesn't stop halfway through to ask what song they'd like to hear next. Like, and things like that have become so normalized. And like, we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty. We all offer choice. We have to, that's how you run a Patreon. That's how you run different things. Like, you have to. But I see it sometimes, even at like people just starting out. Like, there's, if someone started today of like, I'm going to make content, right? And immediately they're like tweeting things like on their first, they got 2 episodes out and they're like, hey, thanks so much for the love on the first 2 episodes. Let me know what kinds of stuff you're hoping. What kinds of content are you hoping to see? No, they don't get a say. Stop doing that. You're normalizing this. And I know you want to make it. And I know you're hungry. And I know you want friendship and adulation and connection and guest spots and all this stuff, or even just to be heard. Even just to be heard, at the base level, you idolized a Ken Napzok, whoever it was. It's like
that's your problem.
Which like, and like, I was there. I was a council viewer before I knew who you were. I knew your voice, and it's like, yeah, oh, that'd be cool. That would be cool. But the second that we open it up,
Alden, like, I knew you.
Christ, God. Is that you? You're gonna reveal yourself on Anytime? And engagement.
It worked for David Icke. I'm gonna do it here.
Extra Cheddar says,
engagement. Yeah, because
with the ethical consumption and but it's like it really burns my brain when I see it at small levels, because that young person that has the first episode of their podcast who immediately asked, "What do you want from me?" on their Instagram, like that creates what we're dealing with here. There is a direct line.
Look, it all flows to January 6th. So
and that too. And that, we don't like the results. We'll just change them.
The January 6th was the ultimate we'd like to speak to your manager and hang him moment in history. No, look, I agree. I agree with what you said. This isn't a debate forum. This is a frustration forum of
100%
of what's going on. And we'll see how far that plays out. I think that I hadn't read all the article. I want to be clear. But the headline of some PR firms, and you're gonna have that more and more. I'm surprised you don't have it already. It used to be, well, I don't want to go do a Marvel film because that's not creatively not my thing, and I don't want to be told what to do as a director. Now it's going to be like, no, I don't want any part of that because I'm going to be, have to shelter in place.
And it was already going that way. I mean, like, a lot of these are backroom conversations, but one that was public was Chris McQuarrie, who's headed up Mission Impossible since the 5th film with Cruise. He's buddies with Rian Johnson, and he was also part of Team Save Rogue One, in the uncredited people.
That's right.
And he was talking with Rian Johnson on Twitter publicly and was like, brother, I don't know how the fuck you deal with this. And he's like, it makes me not ever want to do one of these.
Yeah.
And he was already close to the family. I don't know if he was in talks for a specific film. But it's like the fact that, like, I mean, honestly, like, I don't know Rian Johnson personally. I spoke to him once, but it's like the fact that he's not an embittered piece of shit is a testament to his character. Because I cannot say that after that. or any of them, or these actors. Like the fact that Daisy has been handling everything with such grace, the fact that you have Marvel actors and DC people, like it's like, and again, immediately we'll get a bunch of bros that are like, "Why you feel bad for millionaires and million?" Shut up! You don't know what I'm saying. We're talking about something. We're having an adult conversation here about like the way we treat others.
Feel bad for them.
Yeah, I don't even want to get started on the Snyder Cut because, look, Ken, are you? I don't mean to extend this too long, but like, are you familiar with when me, your co-host, and Padawan went viral because I got into a war with Sonic fans? Were we friends at this point? I can't remember.
I think I knew of you. Yeah, I remember the Sonic debacle. Yeah.
So the first Sonic movie, and it ties in with Snyder Cut because I firmly believe we do not negotiate with terrorists. And the Sonic shit, like when the Sonic design came out, I want to be clear, the Sonic design that they originally had was not good. I did not like it.
Yeah.
Did not like it. But when there was this attitude of, oh, we won because they changed the Sonic design, I was like, this is horrible. And I'm being proven right now in real time with this news piece this week.
I think you're a sassy bitch, but I think you're right. No,
I
all ties
railed against the Sonic thing, and I said, this and the Snyder Cut, like, this is capitulating to children. If they wanted to have a shitty Sonic design with weird little teeth, that was their prerogative. That was their right. You do not have a say. And
then you can vote on it with your dollars.
Yes, exactly. That's your final. We get the final say. Yeah, you're right. But that's when a movie is locked.
Yeah, no, I have all the power to write and present a joke and a bit any way I want. The audience will tell me if it's not working, but I'm not going to invite them into my bedroom. And but I'm not going to invite them into my writing process. I'm going to do what I feel I want to do.
You crossed your arms when I told that joke. I'm just curious, like, why didn't it land for you? Like, there's no one at the Comedy Store focus grouping or like taking note cards at the end. Like, it's just like, and you could, the Sonic thing and the Snyder Cut thing, like, they will go down as moments in time that are like, or even this week, like Nick Gillard opened his fucking mouth and was talking about like all the cut Revenge of the Sith stuff that he's aware of, which we know there's a lot of stuff. Like, you know, we know there's a lot of cut Revenge of the Sith that has never seen the light of day. But it was being talked about, and immediately like 20 years next year, they better give us the 4-hour Revenge of the Sith. No, shut up. You'll be lucky if you get to see scenes. You should be grateful. Yeah, it's like it's insane, dude. It's like
George, who was essentially run out of his own franchise for going, here's what I want to do, not what you want to do.
Exactly. Man. And then we idolize that. We idolize George Lucas and Steve Jobs and like all these people, and rightfully so, for sticking to their guns and delivering what they wanted to deliver. And then we demonize that, and we're so selective. It's like I talked about with Lorne Michaels versus John Williams. We only like old men when what we consider the product to be delivering on expectations. And it's like, yeah, like you know, Taika Waititi is a great example of like how fast they'll turn on you, or even Chapel Roan. And it's like Taika. When he was making his second Thor film, Love and Thunder, somebody tweeted him, and this is one of his last like Twitter interactions before he left, because they're all leaving because of the way you all act. And somebody was like, well, we just want this, and like blah 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 blah. And Taika said, oh, little buddy, like, you don't know what you want until I give it to you. And that pissed everybody off, but he was right.
He's right. No, he's right. No, he's right. No, it's absolutely. No, well said. Yeah, I don't have any final point on it other than it's a dark timeline, but I don't think a lot of it is new. I think there's so many cowards up there in those executive suites just trying to save their salaries, save their money. And George, great interviews of George talking about how the filmmaker families sold to corporations in the 60s and 70s. The studio system was lost, and there's always some benefits of democratizing the process and more artists telling a story, something that's big with George. But it's the 30 Rock, Alec Baldwin. We also make microwaves and toasters joke. It's another product in their portfolio, and this is the result of that.
And Putting it in those terms, yeah, product.
Yeah.
That's why I rail against content with a hard C. It's why I rail against products. Why creator being bastardized. You know, they use the word creator to really, especially to go after multi-hyphenates like you, like Joseph Scrimshaw, like Jennifer Landa. Like I would fancy myself to be one. I'm working on it. But like anybody that's trying to play in multiple areas, or you know, they've taken you and all the specialists and like, you know, you're all creator and you all make content. You all do the same thing and you make the same thing. And the second that we allow that, then we can start to streamline and under the guise of democratization. And it's
let's do it. Let's bring it home.
This episode has been all pain, death, and frustration.
Yep. But you know what? This is why we come here. This is why we come here to solve it all. We're really solving it. What
at this. Fun. Right
Jen Morris Ken is the best multi-hyphenate in the business. Yeah. Jennifer Miro gets to hear me yelling about all this stuff. Why don't your friends know who blankety blank is? Because he's ruining your shows.
Hey,
know his stuff.
Jennifer, we've never met, but when they assembled the Star Trek fan group,
Jennifer. You've met Jennifer Miro.
Oh, that's right. I met
Anaheim.
We did meet, and I believe that this was during COVID outbreak 2022, and none of us knew at the time. So we did meet. We met very briefly.
Let's be honest.
With appetizers.
I think we knew.
I think we predicted. Yeah.
Star Wars Celebration Anaheim 2022 was like, COVID, huh? Like, we knew what we were all getting into.
Yeah. So when they assemble the Star Trek fan focus group, just invite me.
There you go. I
want to be in the group.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can fight fire with fire. It'll just be me screaming about how Voyager is the best show.
Jen can tell you about executives and their choices for Star Trek stuff. All right, that's it. We're out. We gotta roll. I gotta go take care of some business. This has been a fun conversation despite its pain. I love getting in these talks. I love going deep. That's what we do here at Anytime. We focus grouped ourselves at the beginning. We're like, let's do less structure and then make it completely structured with our own broadcast styles. But we're good. We're free flowing a lot of times. So if we offended any one of you, what are you gonna do? You got words for me? Kingsport Cow? You can come find me. Great. But find me online at Ken Knapsack. I do my show, The Blathering, do all those things. I'm trying to get back, Alden, into maybe I should tell people about what I do, and then maybe people will watch and listen. But it's hard for me. I've realized recently, we can talk about this another time. I realized recently I don't have anything left to say. Even though we just did an almost 2-hour show. But, Extra Cheddar asked this question. Any Fortnite streams soon? No, I decided I'm going to keep video games for myself. It was one of those hobbies I was given away as content that I was like, I need to keep this for myself. It's what I do to relax. So
that's powerful. Yeah. That's powerful. And honestly, I think that's the perfect parting note. Find the thing that you can keep for yourself and keep it. And don't give it all away.
Anytime, buddy. You want to fight outside of a Cheddar's over who gets the beans and rice at lunch? I'll be there, buddy. And stay safe out there in East Tennessee, everybody, as best you can with what's going on and what will happen again, unfortunately. Sure of. All right, Alden, should we do it? Should we take it home? Should we play that music? Where's that music? I think you should. Oh, I took the music off the pad. Oh, there it is. Somewhere. There it is. We'll be back next week. I'm around for a bit. Halloween, spooky month. I want pictures of Alden and his costumes growing up, because I didn't grow up dressing up in costumes because of the devil. The devil was in your Halloween, but Alden, I want to see what you.
Hell yeah. I got you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.